hello, and welcome to Around Town. I'm your host, Sally Calora, and thank you for tuning in once again this week. You know, today we're going to talk about real estate in Waltham and the ever-changing faces of all those people who are showing homes and condos, and those real estate professionals that have been in the business a long time, and now we have that younger generation of realtors, those realtor professionals in Waltham. And with me today is just one of those people, my good friend Nicholas New. And Nick is real estate sales manager with Advantage Property Team LLC right here in Waltham on Church Street.
Yep.
So you are a youngin'.
I am, and I get that all the time too.
But you know, you're the son of a guy who I grew up with since I was like this high. I have known your dad.
Yeah.
And you know his private joke. We won't say
Can't say it.
He is so funny. He's your dad is an interesting guy. We were just talking before the show about his interest in baseball.
Yeah.
Norman has an interest in politics. Norman has an interest in all things Waltham. Your mom is a professional. I've had her on the show. She does amazing stuff. And you and your brother.
Yeah.
I mean, look what they did.
I know. It took
They
them
raised
a while,
you
but
good.
Yeah. They knew exactly the right time to have kids, and that's when they're later in life. But me and my brother grew up with my dad in the household being a real estate professional, also being a teacher, a baseball advocate since I was very young. And it's one of his passions, and it was one of mine. Growing up in the town over, my dad always wanted to be back in Waltham, and he got that opportunity once I left for college. And speaking today on real estate, it's an interesting transition for me as well. It's just been in my family all my life, and it's a career I'm most comfortable with. So
you're really in your comfort zone.
Yeah, no,
that's
I think
good.
I think it's great. One, with the team that we have at Advantage Property Team. And my dad being there as well is great. It's a good resource to use, and there's just this family connection that has really eased the process of me transitioning out from a field to where I was to a real estate agent today.
That's fantastic. So Norman has been on the show. We've talked baseball on the show. I had him do a show with me on baseball in his newsletter at the time that he published long ago, and he actually isn't he mentioned in the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that they do over there at the Baseball Hall of Fame. He's inducted into the Hall of Fame, so you can technically put Norman J. New HOF on the last of his name.
Wow.
If you want to be in the Hall of Fame, all you have to do is start an independent newsletter covering a team, and they'll put it in.
For decades and decades.
Yeah.
Because he did it for a long time.
I think 25, 30 years, something like that. It is a long time.
Long time. So tell me, let's start from after high school.
Yeah.
You went to college. What were you intending to go into the real estate business? Did you have a little thought of
looking back,
another path?
Yeah, so I did, and it's funny because when I got into the real estate field, my dad's like, I always wanted you to be in real estate, but that wasn't my path.
Yeah.
I started off. I went to Weston High School, graduated. I had a great education there. Went over to Syracuse University in upstate New York.
And you were a good student. I followed you.
Yeah, I
through
did
your
well.
dad.
I did that and a ton of athletics, and it was a great time there. Went up to Syracuse, majored in sports management at the time. I thought that was a great opportunity. I played a ton in high school. I'm like, okay, I think it'll be an easy transition. Did that for 4 years, worked all over minor league baseball, Special Olympics, you name it, volunteering for whatever I could.
Wow.
Had a lot of fun, thought it'd be the dream. Took a year with the MIAA right after I was done.
What's
as an undergrad.
MIAA?
So it's the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association, which is just the
I'm a
acronyms
girl. I don't know these things. Yeah.
So basically they oversee all of the public high schools in Massachusetts for sporting events. So when it comes to state tournament time or something like that, they do pretty much a lion's share of the work putting that on for the student athletes.
Yeah.
So I did that for a full year. Hopped over to grad school where I got my MBA, my master's in sport management from UMass Amherst. That was a 2-year full-time program. Finished up in May of 2018. And for 6 months, I had something going on with a sports company. Didn't like the experience, and thought, what can I do? Do I want to continue to pursue this? With the student loan crisis and whatnot, school's expensive, so there are bills to pay. and I saw real estate as an opportunity, one, to help my dad, who's had some vision problems over the years, and
I know.
and being an aid to him in that way, as well as
Yeah.
understanding real estate from a distance, to getting pretty much a crash course since I graduated from grad school. While I was doing sports management stuff, I was also studying real estate part-time to help him, and ended up becoming a real thing right after the holidays. So
Wow.
yeah.
So
yeah.
this is fairly new, right after the 2018 holiday
Yeah.
season, and then you dove
Dove
right
head
into
first.
it.
So it was part-time
Wow.
up until then, just as a hobby and helping him out, and decided just to take that free fall into it. And there's been a pretty wide net that was cast for me. So
Yeah, pretty
yeah.
wide net.
Mhm.
So I should say that your dad has had vision problems. He's doing much better now, thanks to all the technology and his drive to, to good health and all that. And people might see him like bicycling around. He
Yeah.
loves to bike.
It's a way for him just to stay in shape. when
He's
he
a
can't
biking
drive.
fool.
Yeah.
He's on his little, not a motorbike. This is like a bicycle all
Yeah.
over town. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
it's a 6-speed, as he likes
Yeah,
to call it.
yeah.
So when he get into 5th gear, he's pretty happy.
Good for him.
Yeah, he used to ride around town. Ever since I graduated high school, his vision had declined to
Yeah.
the point where he was legally blind, and that took
I
a toll on himself. And he didn't decide to sit down and just pout about it. He decided to figure out, all right, how do I still
Amazing.
provide? And
Yeah.
real estate's always been his passion, but it was hard when myself and my twin brother were away at school. So coming back and being in the area has been immense for him, and
Yeah.
and luckily at the same time is thanks to the advances in technology, he's been able to get most, if not all, of his vision back from prior to 2011. So
Sure, that's great.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great, and I always wish him well, my friend out there. So a couple of things. So you played sports in high school.
Yep.
What did you play? I'm so curious. What did you?
So what it's usually phrased, at least what it once was the New England Trilogy. It was football in the fall, it was hockey in the winter, and then it was baseball in the spring. I sprinkled in a little bit of track and field in the winter as well. They needed people,
Unbelievable.
and I decided to go out there, help them out. So I played a lot. I started skating when I was 2.5 years old.
Yeah.
So I actually started out being a figure skater. That's how they taught me how to skate.
Did you
And then-
really?
yeah.
Oh my
So they had us out with the
gosh.
figure skaters, teaching us how to skate and
Uh-huh.
learning about balance. And then from there, probably about a year and a half later, I was on a Mike team, and I think here in Waltham, actually.
Really? Yeah.
Baseball came natural because of my dad and his passion. So
Of course.
played catch as much as we could. And then football was just for fun.
Wow. And what position did you play?
I was
of those?
Yeah, not being extremely tall, I played cornerback and wide receiver, and luckily had the opportunity to play for 3 years on the varsity. So small program, not that great of a player, but it was fun. It was
I
good.
know somebody's show here, right here on WCAC, that might want you on sometime for a little interview.
Yeah, could
on
do it.
sports.
Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah.
What about your brother? So, are you identical twins?
Thank God, no.
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 I'm sure
I'm
you're
happy,
both
yeah.
very handsome.
Oh, definitely,
You are. I'm sure
definitely.
he is. So where is he? What is he doing?
So he's in medical school. He's entering his 3rd year right now. He's doing his clinical rotations over the summer after his 2nd year concluded. They end early 2nd year. They take this major exam
And
called
his name is
Nolan.
Nolan. And we're just going to tell quickly how that your dad told me how they named you.
Yeah.
But so he's going to go into the medical field.
Yeah, he's a devoted servant to the people. He
Wow.
loves medicine. He's always been interested since we were much younger. He was always the more, I guess I wouldn't say introverted, but he was always reading, always fascinated about the human body. He had a lot of nagging pains growing up. Broke his foot in 7th grade in like an interesting spot. Really got into physical therapy because of what he needed to do for his foot. Then his shoulder acted up. So he's been around it, growing up, and it just made a lasting influence. I don't think he wants to go into physical therapy, but he's always had a fascination
Orthopedic
for it.
surgeon.
He'd love that, man.
Yeah.
I think he'd love that.
Yeah. Huh?
We have a good friend who was pretty high up at Mass General, who was the orthopedic surgeon. So he actually got the opportunity to shadow someone over there. So
That's great. And
yeah.
where is he now?
he's at UMass Medical in Worcester.
Oh, okay.
It's I think the only public medical school in Massachusetts for
Teaching?
I think for teaching as well as for students to go. You obviously
Really?
have
Yeah.
the private institutions like Harvard or
Right.
I don't think BC has medical school, but there are others in the area. BU would have one. But yeah, he chose UMass Medical. It was a good fit. He went to Holy Cross as an undergrad, so he's basically 2 blocks away from that school. Knows everything to do out there,
Amazing.
and he's crushing it. He's crushing
You
it.
too are crushing it, both of you, and so did your parents. You done good. So let's talk about real estate here in Waltham. They're not making any more land.
No,
We know that.
right?
And we also know that it's like a roller coaster, according to the economy and mortgage rates. There are lots of factors
Yep.
that make up what property sells for, what property is worth, the value of property, and who's looking for what when you're a buyer, and who wants what when you're a seller. So I'm going to put the ball in your court, to use a sports term. I'll put the ball in your court. Who do you work with as far as your daily job? I mean, you're a real estate professional. There are people out there that this is the season to sell. This is the season to buy.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to get everything done before the fall and winter.
Right. You don't want the snow setting
And
in.
this is like the high season of real estate.
Just about. We're almost there. I think another week.
What's going on, Nick?
So this year to date, it's been pretty fascinating. Being my first 6 months in the business, I'm relatively young to it, but I've had the opportunity to go back through public record and figure out what has happened in Waltham over the last 5 years. This year in particular, we've sold, I think after this past weekend, about 280 pieces of property when it comes to multifamily, single-family, and condominiums in Waltham. That 280 is relatively on pace of what we had in 2016 in Waltham around this time, which was pretty much the highest grossing year over the last 5 years. So compared to last year, where it seemed that there may have been kind of a shortage in inventory or just sales in general, this year's looking stronger. It's hard to believe that because last year was still great, just not a lot of property sold compared to years prior.
I know.
And at this moment, what's the hottest item on the market? I'd have to say it's condominiums. Volume-wise, it trails single-family units.
Affordability, Nick?
Yeah, I think it's affordability. It's this trend of, I wouldn't say minimalism, but having something that's comfortable to live in.
I think
that's
you're
not
right.
too expansive. And a lot of the developers in the area, it's so hard to develop now with the prices of steel going up, with the prices of land costs, because they're not growing land anymore.
They're not growing land.
You can either go up or you can renovate from an existing building.
Right. I see in my little shop down Moody Street, I get newbies in all the time that move to Waltham. A lot of them are buying condos, have purchased condos, and they're younger people. And I think they're more focused on, I agree with you completely, on the minimal lifestyle, living cleanly, not having a lot of stuff, but the stuff you have is really high-end stuff. I see a lot of that happening. And they don't want to do anything. I mean, they don't want to mow the lawn.
That's why I have a condominium association.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah,
No,
they don't want to shovel the snow unless it's right on their doorstep and they'll do this and they're done. Then the property management does the rest. But then those folks are growing out of the condos at some point, and they're looking for a house. They start a family. And they're moving from the one-bedroom condo, and then they're looking for a home. What do you see the trend as far as, are people wanting new houses? Are people wanting something that they can put their own touch to? And not a cookie cutter that's just been built?
Right.
That's really expensive, and we know 4 or 5 or 6 of them right down the street for over $1 million, right?
Yeah, it's
crazy.
It's definitely the dawn of the $1 million home in Waltham.
Isn't
You see it on what's the Terrace over by Bentley University, DeVincent Circle over there.
DeVincent Circle. That's what I was
insane,
referring
right?
to. Yeah.
That's one thing my dad has said over and over. He's never seen anything like this. He didn't expect it. But to answer your question, You know, it's a two-sided answer. I think, one, you have to look at what's available, and just going back a little bit earlier, the cost to develop is just so high. The two options that people have that are most reasonable for them, if you're a builder, is to find an existing multifamily. You have the option of going in, gutting it, and putting up two, townhouse-style condos into it. And at that point, when you're developing those condos, and what we're seeing a lot is, kind of off-market sales or customization projects for people who are, maybe renting, or they own a condo right now, but they feel they've saved enough and they have enough equity to, be able to customize a home with 2,200 square feet, 1,500 square feet, 900 square feet, and be comfortable because they have all the amenities they need. It's customization. I think you nailed it when you said that. And
Sure.
And not to say single-family homes are not selling well. They're doing
Oh,
incredibly
they're selling.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going
I mean,
quickly.
everything is selling.
What's the most incredible thing that I've seen and noticed over the last 5 years in Waltham is the time it takes for a property to be on the market and then sell.
Exactly.
I have some notes with me that go over it, but pretty much, say your house goes on the market, or a house next to you goes on the market. If it's a single-family home, realistically, I think it's like 21.25 days for that first offer for it to close. So if you're a realtor and you have clients, you only really have 2 or 3 open houses realistically to even see this and then make a valid offer, have all your pre-approvals, in order, and to submit something that's going to work. It's
Sure.
insane.
So, what do you do with your clients that call you and say, Nick, I'm interested in selling my house?
There's a lot.
I know there's a lot.
The game has changed. Their game has definitely changed from when my dad first started, and over the course of the last 5 years,
Everything's changed since we first started.
It's all about technology, and especially when it comes to listing now, it's no longer you just show up because there's a sign outside, or there could be signs in a 5-block radius, but that's not what's drawing people. It's all online.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing, if you're looking to sell, I think the first thing you should do is just make sure you have a clean title. So get your affairs in order if you're really serious. Go down to the registry. Just make sure that everything's good. Everything's good on your title. And then from there, contact an agent that you trust who's extremely familiar with the area. Because if you price point wrong in this market, say you try and up it like $20,000 or $30,000 more than what it should actually be, you're just going to watch it sit, and you're going to kill all the attention to your property, because there are a lot of single-family sales in Waltham and a lot that's on the market. If you're not pricing it properly, the realtor is going to know that, and it's not going to be worth their time.
And your dad and I just did that with a certain property, and that property just went on the market. We seem to think that's underpriced.
Yeah, and another thing, going off that, I agree, and maybe it's to cause some sort of bidding war, which could totally happen.
Yeah.
And it's also this rise of the person who listed, or the agency that listed it is not from Waltham. So they don't really
They're
have
not from Waltham. They're far away from Waltham. And so having a realtor like you and your dad and a lot of these other great realtors here in Waltham, right here, that know Waltham inside and out, know the property, know the value. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that particular property.
We'll be watching it. I mean, every week
Yeah.
I try and update, the statistics that I have.
And let's talk about that. You did some amazing, you put together a nice little package on that and a couple of others. And I've kind of been watching you.
Yeah.
You do a lot with video, and let's talk about that. What you do, what is done today, like you said, isn't like the old days in
No.
the mid-'70s when I was selling real estate. And you would just, put the sign in front of, and shake the guy's hand and have him sign a few papers, and then show the houses on weekends and evenings. It's different. It's a little different now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you do and how you market. I'd
Yeah.
like to know, I'd like you to tell the viewers
Sure.
how it's done nowadays and how different it is.
So some things that have worked for us in particular is, one, it's so visual now.
It
It's so
is.
smartphone intensive,
Yeah.
so it's as dramatic as you can make it look to appeal to the right consumer. So
Sure.
I think after checking, if you're looking to sell, after checking for a clean title and whatnot, go to your local realtor who you trust. That's number 2. And number 3 is I would suggest going to a mortgage company. There are plenty in Waltham here. One thing that's really unique about the situation we live in compared to what used to happen is that the banks really controlled the flow of money in real estate. Today, there's a
Right.
lot of lenders. There's commercial lenders out there. And I would go to one of these commercial lenders and just say, hey, I have a good idea of the value of my home. What's the type of client that you think would be moving into it based on the data that you have that might be looking to purchase something like this? So you have like kind of a clear idea of how you should market your property. They might tell you some good information, they might not. It depends on how many sales they've done in the year, past couple of years, what they've seen. But after that, it's all visual. So you want to hire a professional photographer. Don't use your iPhone. It's not worth it. The quality's not good enough to compare to what these people can do. The rise of drone usage
Amazing.
the shots are incredible.
Amazing. Yeah.
Incredible. It's
Yeah.
really changed because you can do overviews. You can show people
Yeah.
the backyard from, just looking at the front center, and it goes right over the top of the house. You see the whole
Yeah.
property, the property
Yeah.
line. It gives you a really in-depth look, a really good touch point that you can't see just through photos. So professional photos, professional video. I suggest getting everything staged, or at least having a staging
I
professional come through.
Totally agree. And a friend of mine had to downsize before she even thought about having a realtor come in and showing the house. When you live in a home for 45 years, 50 years, I know I was in a home since I was 5, and we're all downsizing and just making the place look open, and because whoever comes in is going to have their own style.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of folks that go in and help you stage. Take out what is not necessary.
Yeah.
All the family photos and the pictures of the dog on the wall and that sort of thing, and just put some flowers on the table or a basket of fruit, making it look inviting, but letting people see what they might be purchasing. Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you made 2 great points. One is there's an open flow when a stager comes through, and they might remove things that you think are cute and that you think would work with the property well, but you got to realize that your opinion may be jaded. So it's not a knock on the individual who owns the home, but depersonalization, I think, is critical to
Sure.
successful showing, because showing's half the battle. There's still there's still a lot of legwork left after that. They're gonna see other properties that may have a more homey touch. Maybe they don't like that. Maybe it's a more minimalist touch.
Yeah, yeah.
And staging can help clarify the right direction to go in. And
Sure.
for a deposit of, say, there are some people that have really good deals for a month-long staging that costs maybe, we'll say, a couple of $100 to maybe $1,000, $2,000.
Which in the big scheme
Right.
of thing is small money.
It's changed
Yeah.
because what that does, when you have a professional come through, studies have shown, in the case where people have gone $20,000 over asking price because it was properly staged. That's one of the
Sure.
attributing factors. They get more offers. They get more offers that are at asking price, that are closer to asking price. So that small commitment of maybe it could take 3 or 4 hours. Like I know a great stager personally. And
I was going to say, and you can help with all that too.
yeah, a realtor's
Yeah.
great. They're going to have contacts for you. And if they
Sure.
don't, they'll find someone who does, because one, they don't want to lose your business because you came to them first, and that's a sign of trust, and
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And realtors are really obligated to the community too. I know a lot of realtors in Waltham that are just really part of the community. They belong to service clubs. They're out there. So you see these people all the time. So you're pretty confident that the people that you're dealing with, are Waltham people
Yeah.
that are, that are really involved and embedded in the community. We've got just a little bit of time left. I want to, I know you brought a lot of notes
Yeah.
and some good points, and
Very
a half
heavy.
hour isn't enough to talk about everything going on
I'll
in
just come on another time.
real estate, and we'll definitely do that. We'll talk about right now, like showing your house during, right up before the holiday, and then during the holiday season, people take, you take a break. Being a buyer, of course, if you're a veteran, there are some advantages that you have
Yeah.
with loans and
Yeah.
all that. Any tips you have for buyers that might be coming to you and saying, Nick, I really want to look at some homes.
Yeah.
What do I do? We talked about clear title
Mhm.
for the seller. What's your advice? And I know people can call you, and your information is going to be in the credits as well,
Right.
Nick.
I think first and foremost, just be realistic with your expectations. It's an interesting market. It's definitely a seller's market in the case of, the price control and what's been happening over the last 5 years, and even more so. So one, go see a lender, understand what you're really qualified for, so you're not daydreaming about the possibilities of, what you think is possible compared to what's actually possible.
And pre-approved letter.
Oh man, yeah,
That-
it's needed.
Some
Buy-
realtors
yeah.
won't even show you.
Yeah,
I mean, you need to be pre-approved nowadays.
yeah.
It's serious business when you're paying that much for a home.
Right, and nobody wants, so going back to what happened in 2008 and when the
Oh
crash,
yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
everybody wants to be protected. They don't want to be showing property to people who can't
That's
afford
right.
it, and it's a necessity for our job security and for the
Sure.
profession and for the community itself, because we don't want people to be hurt
Right.
when you're trying to bid on something that you
You
just
don't
can't
want to
afford.
buy something you can't afford
No, it
for the long haul.
yeah,
In a downturn in the economy like 2008, as you said, Nick, anything can happen.
Mhm.
And so buying what you're comfortable with.
Right.
If one of the two people is out of work for a while,
Mhm.
having a little bit of money saved, it's
Yeah.
all kind of, it all comes together that way.
Yeah.
This has been a great half hour with you. Thank you
It's gone
so,
by very
so
quickly.
much.
Yeah.
Didn't I
know,
tell
right?
you?
Yeah.
And it just flies by. I always do a shout out.
Mhm.
At the end of my shows, I do a shout out to folks out there, and the first shout out is to Norman and Ann. You've done amazing things with these young men. Shout out to you. And I love talking politics with your dad too.
Oh, he's great. He's great.
He's so knowledgeable,
Yeah.
and he's very opinionated but smart. But my shout out this week is to Waltham's first responders. We've had a couple of house fires here in Waltham, and in the winter there are house fires, in the summer in the heat there are house fires, and those firefighters that go out there day and night fighting fires. Recently, just last week, there was a very tragic accident on Main Street. And I live on Main Street, and I saw this. I did not see the accident. I saw it afterward. And everything was roped off with yellow tape. There were firefighters, there were EMTs, Waltham police all over the place doing their job. The 911 operators who take all these calls and process them, gotta tell you, they do an amazing job. So this week, my shout out is to all of you who do so much for all of us. Until next week, please stay tuned. Same time, same station. God bless. Be well.